It's nighttime in Riverside Park. A dimly lit pathway winds along the river. The city skyline flickers in the distance, but here the world is eerily silent. The sound of water lapping against the shore is barely audible over the occasional rustling of leaves. A young man, Jason Miller, stumbles forward, his breath heavy, his clothes soaked, his eyes dart around, panic stricken. He's disoriented, drunk, but something else is wrong. Behind him, in the shadows, a figure stands motionless, unseen, waiting. Jason grips his phone, fumbling to call someone, anyone. Before he can dial, a whisper drifts through the air. Jason, where are you going? Jason spins around. No one is there. Then out of the darkness, a hand lunges. The sun rises, casting a ghostly glow over the river. A small group of joggers gasp in horror as they spot a body floating near the shore. Detective Lucas Reed, hardened by years on the force, stands by the river. His jaw clenches as he watches his responders pull Jason's lifeless body from the water. Nearby, his partner, Detective Sarah Monroe, flips through her notepad. Another one, says Sarah. Lucas exhales, rubbing his temples. That's 5 this year. Sarah hesitates before pointing to the nearby retaining wall. There's something else, she says. Lucas follows her gaze. There, spray painted in a sickly shade of red, is a crudely drawn smiley face. The evidence board is covered in photos, and each victim, young men in their early 20s, found drowned under similar conditions. Each crime scene is marked by a smiley face. Lucas and Sarah sit across from Dr. Eric Watson, a criminologist specializing in serial patterns. He gestures to the photos. It's the same MO, same profile, but no real signs of a struggle. Toxicology reports show alcohol, sometimes drugs, but nothing consistent, says Eric. Sarah taps a folder. There's a theory. Online forums, conspiracy boards. They call him the Smiley Face Killer. They think it's an organized group. Lucas scoffs. Come on, Sarah. Internet boogeyman? Well, maybe not just the internet, says Eric. He slides forward a file. Check this out. These cases go back decades, different cities, different states, but always the same pattern. Sarah flips through old reports. Young men found drowned, smiley faces near the scenes. This is bigger than we thought, she said. A neon sign flickers outside a crowded dive bar. Inside, loud music, cheap drinks, and the sea of college kids celebrating their weekend escape. Sitting alone at the bar is Ben Carter, a recent grad, nursing his beer. Across the room, a stranger watches him, a man in a black hooded sweatshirt. Ben doesn't notice. Not yet. The hooded figure finally makes his move, sliding onto the stool beside him. Rough night, says the hooded figure. Ben shrugs. Just needed to get out. The figure offers a friendly smile. Let me buy you a drink. Ben hesitates, but eventually nods. The bartender sets down 2 glasses. Ben takes a sip. Then his vision blurs. The room spins. The last thing he sees is that smile. Ben stumbles through the dark, confused, dazed. He doesn't remember leaving the bar. His heartbeat pounds in his ears. A laugh echoes behind him. You shouldn't have come alone, Ben, says the hooded figure. Ben whirls around. Nothing. He tries to run, but his limbs feel heavy, like he's moving through water. From the shadows, figures emerge, all wearing black, all smiling. Ben's breath catches. Who are you? One of the figures steps forward, pulling down their hood. A woman. Her face is eerily serene. We are the ones who watch, the ones who wait, she says. Ben stumbles backward. Please, I just want to go home. The figures close in. But you are home, Ben, says the hooded figure. A final scream. Another body, another crime scene. Sarah and Lucas arrive, their worst fears confirmed. Sarah swallows hard. Same pattern. Lucas looks up at the graffiti, a fresh blood and red, a smiley face staring back at him. His fists clench. This isn't random. This is a message. Sarah meets his gaze, determination replacing fear. Well, let's send one back, says Sarah. As the camera pans up, the city skyline looms ominously. Somewhere in the shadows, the smiley face watches. The smiley face killer is a chilling mystery that has haunted investigators for decades. It all began in the late 1990s when retired NYPD detectives Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte noticed a disturbing pattern. Young men, mostly college-aged, were vanishing after nights out drinking, only to be found drowned in rivers or lakes days or weeks later. But there was something even more unsettling. At many of these death sites, a strange spray-painted smiley face was found nearby. The official cause of death in nearly every case was ruled accidental drowning, often attributed to intoxication. Authorities dismissed the deaths as tragic, but unrelated. Yet, Gannon, Duarte, and a small group of private investigators believed otherwise. They theorized that these were not accidents, but the work of a coordinated group of killers, a dark, organized network that preyed on young men, stalking them, drugging them, and disposing of their bodies in water to erase evidence. The theory suggests that the killers were methodical, leaving their eerie calling card, the smiley face, as a taunt to authorities. Cases span multiple states from the Midwest to the East Coast, with similar victims and circumstances. Some theorists even speculated that the killers used the deep web to communicate, choosing their victims based on specific traits. Despite the compelling patterns, law enforcement agencies have largely dismissed the theory, citing lack of concrete evidence and inconsistent crime scene details. But the deaths have never stopped. To this day, young men continue to disappear under eerily similar circumstances, their bodies turning up in rivers, their cases closed as accidents. Was this the work of a single serial killer, a shadowy network, or is it simply a tragic coincidence? No one knows for sure, but the smiley faces remain, grinning from the darkness, as if mocking the truth that still eludes us. As stated previously, it started as a series of tragedies, isolated drownings that at first glance seemed like nothing more than unfortunate accidents. College-aged men out drinking with friends mysteriously vanished into the night, only to be discovered days or weeks later floating lifeless in rivers, lakes, or canals. Authorities ruled them as accidental drownings or in some cases suicides, but beneath the surface something far more sinister lurked. The first suspicious cases started in the late 1990s. The detectives, Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte, along with criminal justice professor Dr. Lee Gilbertson, began noticing this disturbing pattern. These deaths weren't random. They were happening in clusters across multiple states, often in cities with large universities. The victims were overwhelmingly young, athletic, successful men, many of them with strong academic or sports backgrounds. They were described as popular, well-liked, and responsible, not the type to disappear and get lost on their own. The circumstances surrounding their disappearances were eerily similar. The men were last seen at bars or parties, often separated from their friends for seemingly minor reasons. Their bodies were later discovered in nearby bodies of water, sometimes miles from where they were last seen. Many were found weeks after their disappearance, yet their bodies showed minimal decomposition, suggesting they had been kept somewhere else before being placed in the water. Most chilling of all, investigators began noticing a calling card. graffiti of a smiley face, spray painted near where the bodies were found. This was no coincidence, it was a signature. The smiley case By the early 2000s, Gannon Duart and their team believed they had uncovered a massive, organized crime network, a group of killers they called the Smiley Face Killers. Their theory suggested that the killers were highly organized and methodical, working in multiple states, that they stalked a targeted specific victim, selecting young men with strong potential and bright futures. They used drugs like GHB, a common date rape drug, to incapacitate their victims. They held their victims for days before ultimately drowning them, making it look like an accident. The team compiled over 40 cases across 11 states that fit the pattern. They argued that police were ignoring clear signs of foul play because of a bias, assuming young men who had been drinking simply fell in and drowned. One of the most well-known cases associated with the theory was Chris Jenkins, a 21-year-old University of Minnesota student who disappeared after being kicked out of a bar on Halloween night in '02. His body was found months later in the Mississippi River, arms crossed over his chest as if he had been placed there rather than simply drowning. Initially ruled an accidental drowning, his death was later reclassified as a homicide due to new evidence. Other cases include Dakota James, 23, Pittsburgh, 2017, seen on surveillance footage walking alone before vanishing. His body was found in the Ohio River 40 days later, but his toxicology results raised questions, suggesting he may have been drugged and kept alive before being placed in the water. Todd Gieb, 22, Michigan, 2005. Last seen at a party, missing for 21 days. His body was found floating upright, as if he had just been placed in the water, with no water in his lungs, suggesting he may not have drowned at all. Patrick McNeil, 21, New York, 1997. Last seen leaving a bar. Witnesses saw a van following him, yet police ruled it an accidental drowning. In nearly every case, families insisted their loved ones were not suicidal, reckless, or prone to wandering off drunk. Something else had happened. Law enforcement was still skeptic. Despite the compelling connections, most law enforcement agencies refused to accept the smiley face killer theory. They argued that drownings among intoxicated individuals are common, especially in cities with rivers and lakes. The smiley faces were like random graffiti, not a serial killer's signature. There was no physical evidence linking the cases, no DNA, no witnesses, no confessions. Even the FBI reviewed the theory and found no solid proof of an organized group. Still, Gannon and his team remained convinced. A darker theory, the deep web connection. Some independent researchers took the theory even further, speculating that the killers may have been using the dark web to communicate and select victims. They pointed to the fact that many victims were similar in appearance and background, suggesting that a specific type was being targeted. They theorized that ritualistic or cult-like elements could be involved. Some believe this was not just one killer, but many, a secret society operating under law enforcement's radar. No proof of this has ever been found, but the mystery remains. With many unanswered questions, as of today, the Smiley Face Killer case remains one of the most debated, unsolved mysteries in modern crime history. Is it all a coincidence? Why do the deaths follow such a pattern? If that's the case, why do so many bodies show signs of being held elsewhere before being placed in the water? And why does that same smiley face keep appearing, mocking those who try to find the truth? The answers remain elusive, but one thing is certain: young men are still disappearing. And somewhere out there, in the shadows, the smiley face killer may still be watching. So, who were the suspects? Despite extensive investigations and theories surrounding the smiley face killer, no specific individuals have ever been charged or officially identified as suspects. However, there have been many theories about possible perpetrators or groups involved. Here are some of the key possibilities. A single serial killer. Some investigators believe that a lone serial killer could be behind at least some of the deaths. If this were the case, it would have to be someone who travels frequently or operates in multiple states. However, this theory has often been dismissed because the deaths do occur over multiple decades and across multiple states. There is no consistent physical description of the suspect, and the methods used in the crimes vary slightly, making it unlikely that a single killer is responsible. The second one is a secretive, organized network. Now retired detectives Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte, along with criminal justice professor Dr. Lee Gilbertson, believe the drownings are the work of an organized group of killers who work together across different states. Their theory suggests the killers are well connected and communicate through hidden means, possibly the dark web. They stalk victims for a period of time before choosing the right moment to strike, and they may have access to drugs like GHB to incapacitate their targets. They dispose of the victims in water to destroy evidence and make deaths look accidental. If this theory is true, then the perpetrators could be a secret cult or ritualistic group, merely selecting victims based on specific traits. It could be a network of killers preying on young men for unknown reasons, or a group that selects victims as part of an initiation or a game. However, again, law enforcement agencies have never found concrete proof of a large-scale criminal network operating in this way, which I find to be shoddy police work. I mean, it's just unimaginable with this amount of evidence. One of the third theories is that local predators and opportunistic killers. Multiple killers acting independently may have targeted young men in similar ways. In this case, some of the drownings may have truly been accidental. Others may be the work of different killers who happen to use similar methods. Yet the smiley face graffiti could be a coincidence. It could have been copied by different people over time, although I find this very hard to believe. The theory suggests that the killers may be different individuals in different cities, but their crimes share similarities, making it seem like one group is behind them all. Again, the fact that there's smiley faces at every crime scene just doesn't add up to me. There's got to be more going on. And that's where we get to the dark web and online targeting theory. More theorists believe the dark web plays a heavy role in the smiley face killer cases. There's some sort of hidden online network that coordinates these attacks. Some believe the victims are chosen well ahead of time based on their looks, status, and social media presence. There are even rumors of videos being sold on the dark web showing victims before their deaths, but no evidence, again, has ever been found. It's purely speculative, as no law enforcement agency has confirmed any connection with the dark web. Which, of course, leads us into our next possibility, corrupt law enforcement cover-ups. As a conspiracy theorist myself, suggest the killings may involve people in power, possibly law enforcement officials, politicians, or wealthy elites that have weird fetishes, or, it could be families of some victims claim that evidence was ignored or that law enforcement was too quick to dismiss cases as accidents. Some believe that certain deaths were covered up or not investigated properly because the perpetrators were connected to influential people. In some cases, missing surveillance footage or inconsistent reports have fueled suspicion. However, no direct evidence has ever linked law enforcement to the crimes. In conclusion, there's really no confirmed suspects. To this day, no arrests have ever been made. No concrete suspects have been identified. The smiley face killer theory remains controversial and unproven, with law enforcement officially rejecting the idea that deaths are connected. Again, I find that hard to believe. But for the families of the victims, too many coincidences remain unexplained. And as young men continue to disappear under similar circumstances, the mystery of the smiley face killer remains unsolved. The term smiley face killer comes from the controversial theory proposed by retired NYPD detectives Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte, along with criminal justice professor Dr. Lee Gilbertson. They believe that this network of killers is responsible for the suspicious deaths of over 40 young men across the U.S., whose bodies were found in bodies of water after nights out drinking. Near many of the recovery sites, spray-painted smiley face graffiti was found, leading to the theory's eerie name. Again, no one has ever been arrested or officially charged in connection with these killings. So, while the theory has gained traction online and in true crime circles, no smiley face killer has ever been identified, caught, or prosecuted, and the mystery remains unsolved. And that's where we leave it. What do you think's happening? Please leave a comment. Let me know. I'm just as baffled as everybody else is. Maybe we can figure this out together. Hope you enjoyed the information and the story. Please leave a like and a subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.